now. Okay, I'm live on Instagram. It looks like I am literally floating in a deep abyss, which I am here for. Live on Instagram, also on Zoom for my Your Stellar Center ladies. So if I'm looking two places, that's what's up. Just gonna wait a moment to see or to allow folks to hop on IG Live. If people still do that. People still do that. I've been off of IG, which, what does that mean? I mean, I've been on a little bit, but not as active. And I'm like, what do people do? Did I miss all the trends? And like, do people still do lives? Lauren's here. Cool. So, got some tea. We're going to talk about past lives. Not totally sure what's going to come through here, but it's going to be good. Okay. I think that my Instagram just notified people, which is good. If anyone watching this live has a specific question, put it in the chat or put it in a comment in Instagram. So hi, Instagram Live. We're going to talk about past lives in just a moment when my song ends in 17 seconds. Yeah. So funny. I can talk so much, but I just got really quiet as I was getting ready because after this live, we have a coaching call for Your Stellar Center, and I was like, I have nothing to say. Which is not true. And also, it's not, it doesn't matter what I have to say because I have some notes, but with most of my coaching, with most of my teaching, I channel, and I'm hesitant to use that word, coming out of the spiritual closet. But truly it is a more channeled discussion. Great. So I see we have some folks joining live on Instagram. We have some of the Your Stellar Center ladies joining on Zoom. So if I'm looking in two different places, that's why. So nice to have you all here. Let's just take a moment and come into this space together. Taking a deep breath in and a full breath out. And I'm going to ask myself, my higher self, to be present for what wants to come through in this conversation about past lives, to release any attachment to my agenda, and share from my heart what is highest and best for everyone tuning in. Whenever, wherever you are tuning in. Another full breath in and a full breath out. So welcome, friends. Let's talk a little bit about past lives. I actually want to start with a story. And this story stands out in my memory so strongly. For many reasons, which maybe I'll share. Well, I'll definitely share one of them because it's related to our conversation here tonight. I don't know, I tried to find the actual story because this story came from a story that I read. I have a sense that it was like a chain email. One of those emails that gets forwarded, which I could not find anything online, but this story really sparked something in me that made me start to question, and not just question in a analytical sense or a quizzical sense. Many of you know this, but I was a CPA in a past life in this lifetime. So definitely have some of that analytical nature in me. But question in a what's possible? What is what I know to be true actually true? and in a really positive way. So the story was something along the lines, it was a poem, or like I said, I think I vision it in a chain email. And as you read through this story, it told a tale of somebody, what it sounded like dying. The process sounded like they were dying, like they were comfortable in a space, and then they started getting, pushed out and called towards the light, and everything went dark. And how this story ended was, it was a baby being born. But for the whole story, which was, think of a chain email, a couple paragraphs, you thought that it was somebody dying. And the story was not particularly, I don't remember it necessarily being well written, or by somebody famous. Clearly, I couldn't find it when I literally tried to find it for this live because I wanted to read it out loud. Maybe I'll find it for Sunday's class. But it was that shift in perspective from me thinking that this story was about somebody dying to it actually being about somebody being born that really lit something up in me, or switched something on in me, to start to question, well, what if? I have shared this many times, but I did not necessarily grow up in a spiritual household or religious household. I really didn't have much, and actually that's not true. We all have programming. I was going to say I didn't have much programming. I didn't have much very conscious programming around God and what I believe happened after death. I just thought people died. And this story, hearing this, I started to question that belief. I thought why couldn't this be true? Why couldn't it be true that imagine being a baby in your mother's womb. Maybe do this right now, especially if you're a little bit skeptical of this past life reincarnation thing. Imagine being a baby in your mother's womb, being safe in that space. As a baby, you're floating in fluids. It's a different environment. You're being nourished. You're being loved. You're being held in warmth. And then all of a sudden, it's time to go. It's time to leave this comfortable place. And birth is traumatic. I've been through birth because I was born. I have not given birth, but I've heard from many mothers that a beautiful experience, but also can be a traumatic experience because there's this transition. And so as I heard that story, maybe you too can imagine being in this comfortable place, being in a world per se that you thought was the entire world. Your mother's womb was your entire world. And then being pushed through this uncomfortable, or what might have felt like a challenge, like you were going to die, like something was going to change, but then being birthed into something new. So hey, everyone who's just hopping on Instagram, I'm talking a little bit about past lives and what got me started in this, to even consider this conversation, especially as somebody who didn't grow up with a lot of spirituality or, beliefs in this. So this story really ignited something in me. And this wasn't the part that I was going to share, but I do want to share it. I remember being so blown away. I was like, holy crap. What if we are all just walking around on this planet and then we die and we're literally born into something new? We're literally born into something new. It blew my mind. And in a good way. Not in a way of oh, I'm afraid, or it actually made this idea of death something that could be more looked at with compassion, with interest, with love. And so I remember telling my boyfriend at the time, I read him the story, and I was ready to have a really deep conversation about, lives and like what could happen, like what is possible. And he literally was like, that's crazy. Clearly we're not together anymore. That was many, many years ago. But I just remember in that moment, like, it did matter what he said, but it didn't matter what he said because it had awoken something up in me. And so that was my like first spark and an interest in past lives was through hearing a story. And for many folks, story is, well, for years and years, and we talked about this in Your Stellar Center in Gemini season, stories are such a powerful way for us to learn something. Even more, like I could come up here and tell you, like I could sit here and teach, this is what people know about past lives, which that's a relative term. This is what the books say about past lives. This is why I think you should believe it. But that probably won't do you as good as hearing a story. So hopefully me sharing my story, if this was something that you haven't thought about before, maybe has opened that up for you. And so after I received this chain email, or wherever the story came from, I'm going to find it someday, I promise. I feel like it kind of like was a question lingering in the back of my head. And over the next few years, this happened, probably 8 years ago at this point, I started to open up to like learning a little bit more about spirituality in general, and then specifically wanting to study past lives. And as with most things in life, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and that teacher can appear as a human, as a teacher, as a mentor, as a coach, as a book, as an Instagram post. And there were a few books that came up in my life that started to unpack this concept of past lives, this thing that I was just kind of thinking about and letting swirl in my brain and question, letting my Piscean imagination like take over. I started to actually like learn a little bit more about it from professionals. And what I want to do here tonight is just recap a few key points. Hi friends who are joining live, just chatting a little bit about past lives. I want to recap a few key points that I think are like premises of having this past life conversation. I'm going to connect it to why this even matters beyond just like daydreaming and thinking of something bigger. And then I do want to leave you with some questions that hopefully will open up your perspective around this. I know there's folks on here and on Zoom that are on different levels with their journeys. So, maybe you've heard of past lives before. Maybe this is a brand new topic for you. But hopefully you'll be able to take something from this because you joined here tonight for a reason. So the questions that were brought up in me when I first started learning about past lives were first like, what if this life isn't it? What if this life isn't it? What if there is a bigger picture? What if there is something beyond what I can see? And as I started to study more about past lives from psychotherapists, from folks that do hypnosis, the question that came about also as I continued to like follow my path and uncover my purpose is, what if I couldn't miss my calling or my purpose because my soul picked this life, specifically designed this life to meet that purpose, And I think that's like, I love my favorite question to ask people. And if anybody has ever been at a dinner party or around a dinner table with me, you'll know my favorite question to ask people, besides what do you think what would be your superpower if you could have a superpower, is what do you think you were in a past life? And to me, that piece, we'll come back to it, but that piece is less about like knowing exactly what happened in a past life. and more just like opening up the possibility of like, what are you interested in? What eras, what personalities are interesting to you, and is this something that you would even believe in? So I'll share. There's two books that have been really helpful for me in this conversation, specifically off the top of my head. Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And for my folks in Your Stellar Center, we're going to go deeper into this in March, so you can kind of like just take it as a for whatever you want right now. But we will go deeper in March. So Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And that book was the first book that I read that was all about past lives. Brian Weiss, it was a traditional therapist. He accidentally used hypnosis. He didn't accidentally use hypnosis. He accidentally brought someone to a past life through hypnosis. There was a woman who was having a bunch of trauma and challenges in her life, and he was trying to regress her to childhood to see if there was a repressed memory there. And he ended up regressing her past her lifetime. So this opened up a whole new field of practice for him. And that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, is his account specifically with her and his other patients. Super fascinating. And I love to learn from people that are analytical in so many ways, because to me, that's like evidence. So Many Lives, Many Masters, I read that, and that kind of like opened up my mind. And then I also more recently read a book called Journey of Souls, which I've recommended to some of the women in Your Stellar Center to read this month, as we talk a little bit more about creating a spiritual practice and connecting to a higher power. Whereas Many Lives, Many Masters talks about like past lives and how they might play out and how they might impact us in our current life. Journey of Souls goes deeper and actually looks more at the life between lives. So this space in between lives, if we're using that, well, I don't know if there's actually a metaphor for birth. Like being in the birth canal doesn't really do it. But this space in between lives, if we do buy into this idea that we reincarnate, our souls reincarnate, and we come back again, there is a space. There's a space. And so in Journey of Souls, that's by Michael Newton, I believe. And he also used regression, hypnosis, to bring people back, but pause them in this space between their lives. And I'm sharing this to share that I have studied this and studied it or experimented with this idea of past lives from different perspectives. And what's cool is when you start to study certain spiritual teachings or certain esoteric teachings, you find commonalities. And for me, that's like the biggest proof. The proof is in the overlap, right? If somebody just tells you something, or if you make something happen once, like say, let's just talk about manifesting. If you make something happen once, if you're like, I'm going to try this new method of manifesting where I spend 5 minutes every morning thinking about a certain thing that I want, a set of tarot cards, for example. I'm going to spend 5 minutes every morning doing that. And if you do that and it happens once, it's like, great. But then you're kind of like, is this true? Similar to like doing scientific experiments. You do something a certain amount of times using a certain method. And then when you get consistent results, there's something there. So that's what I felt like as I started reading more, learning from different teachers. And the pieces that I've gleaned from this that have really helped me. I mean, again, I love fantasizing in the realm of past lives. It's fun. I feel like it tells us things about our psyches. Like, oh, where would you be in a past life? Who would you be in a past life? Everyone's answers are different, by the way. Everyone's answers are different. Maybe we'll play this game in our coaching call tonight, my friends. But more than just like interesting like psychoanalysis, the pieces of studying past lives that were most impactful for me, or the piece was that I have a soul that has a plan. I have a soul that's bigger than me. It's bigger than this body. It's bigger than this life. And it has a plan. Not like in the plans of like, oh, I'm going to plan out my agenda, plan out my calendar for the day. These are my tasks. These are my achievements. But this soul, this can see something bigger than what I can see. And with that too, of like, one, that takes the pressure off of me, human Emily, to have it all figured out, to get all the accomplishments, to, I don't know, self-actualize, again, find my purpose. That's something that I hear from a lot of my clients, like, well, I want to find my path. I want to find my purpose. And so like this idea that you have a soul that has a plan takes some of the pressure off. And I think it also takes the pressure off because you don't have to do everything and learn everything and experience and achieve everything in this lifetime. And personally, for me, that has been such a relief of like, okay, I can choose this path forward. And like, I'm not missing out. I'm not missing out if I say no to something. Maybe that's something I'm going to experience in a future life. Maybe that's something I've already experienced in a past life. And because I trust that there is this plan for me, that my soul that has my highest and best good in mind has mapped out perfectly within this lifetime, I can kind of lean back a little bit. I can relax into this knowing that I don't have to fight so hard to figure it all out. So I'm curious, I'm going to pause right there. We're almost I have to go at 8 p.m. because we have a coaching call for your Seller Center. But I'm going to pause right there and see, especially for my folks on Instagram, but also if you're here on Zoom, feel free to pop into the comments if this is resonating with you. And if this is something that you, like, is this something that you've thought about before? This idea of past lives. You can just give some hearts in the live, or just give me like a little wave. And if past lives is brand new to you, I want to hear that too. I'd love to know that too. Lisa said, yes, love talking about researching past lives. Lauren said, yes, I think about this a lot in terms of recurring dreams I have. Ooh, let's talk about that. I see some waves. Kara here on Instagram, oops, I just kind of like did something weird. Oh, there we go. Said, I feel the same way about catching that next time. Cool. I'm having some like good feedback here. So again, my intention with this, and not good, but like this is resonating feedback. Lucinda said, this is a new thought for me, but I'm very curious. Awesome. Well, we're going to talk more about this definitely in Pisces season, because Pisces season is the perfect time to have this conversation. But why I wanted to get on live here today is, one, just to open up these questions for you, if it feels interesting. And my guess is if you're here and if you're still watching on Instagram, this might be interesting to you. What if this life wasn't it? Y'all, and we haven't even touched on the topic of like parallel universes and parallel lives and alternate realities, but what if this life wasn't it? What if you had infinite lives before and infinite lives ahead? What if there is a bigger picture that you as like human self can't always see? And I'm sure like you've had a moment like that in human self life where you thought you had the right idea and the right plan and the right way forward, and something didn't work out and you were really like upset. Maybe it was a breakup or a job fell through. And then a few months later, a few years later, or a while later, you were like, oh, I see why that had to happen. So thinking about that in a bigger perspective with like lives. And then the one that I really want to leave you with tonight is, what if I couldn't miss my calling or miss my purpose or miss my path in life or miss my soulmates, because my life was specifically designed for me to align with those things, for my spiritual growth, for my soul's growth. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about past lives and specifically using some of the things we talked about here today, connecting to your calling or your purpose in the workshop that I'm hosting this Sunday, Remembering the Future. So this is, every year I do some sort of intention setting and visioning workshop, and this is the one that I'm offering this year. It's this Sunday, the 17th from 1 to 3-ish Eastern time. We're going to talk about past lives. We're going to talk about reincarnation, and also talk about the law of attraction, which was the other topic for this Instagram live that a lot of people voted for. So maybe I'll do a live later this week introducing that concept. But if you're interested in looking at this year ahead from a higher perspective, from a place of, wow, maybe there's a lot I don't know and I could look at things differently, I'd love to have you join us on Sunday. So you can get all the details for that workshop in my bio. It's also my website. My website's under construction, but there is like a page up front if you go to emilynahazl.com where it says January events, and that's where you can find the link to the workshop. There will be a replay if you're not able to join live. And if you haven't, I've heard from a lot of folks that they haven't necessarily felt called to do 2021 intentions. They haven't been resonating with like goal setting. So this is an invite. This is an opportunity to do that in a different way and for this space to be held for you, so that you don't have to like do it all yourself. I will hold your hand along the way and hopefully introduce some more interesting concepts and new perspectives. All right, my friends, I'm going to end this Instagram live. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching the replay, thank you. And hop on to our coaching call. Bye. Okay.